Welcome to the Talent Current by Root Edge, a podcast about what's happening in talent right now, with a special focus on the people powering the energy and infrastructure transition. I'm your host, Mindy Prefling. I've spent nearly a decade in recruitment, helping some of the most influential companies in renewable energy, power, and digital infrastructure build the teams that drive their growth. Over the years, I've led high-performing recruitment teams, partnered with some of the industry's largest players, and launched and hosted the Soapbox series, a podcast where I spoke with leaders across energy and infrastructure about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, with the Talent Current, I'm evolving those conversations forward. Each episode, we dive into honest discussions with industry leaders about hiring, leadership, culture, and what it takes to stay grounded in a constantly shifting landscape. We'll explore everything from executive search and organizational strategy to leadership coaching and the changing workplace landscape. And we'll shine a light on the women breaking ground in traditionally male-dominated spaces. At Root Edge, our mission is simple: connecting people to energize tomorrow. And this podcast is an extension of that mission. Whether you're scaling a company or building your own career, the Talent Current is your place to stay plugged into how work is changing and who's driving it forward. Today on the Talent Current, I'm joined by someone who has built his career in renewables on curiosity, execution, and strong relationships. Kyle Lockhouse is the Vice President of Growth and Development at Sunracer, where he leads storage and solar strategy across multiple markets. His journey started in a small town in Kansas and has taken him through developing gigawatts of wind and solar projects at Tradewind Energy and Enel Green Power to co-founding Pedal Steel Solar and helping drive smart, scalable energy growth. Across those experiences, one through line stands out: the importance of people, mentors, advocates, and communities that help talented individuals move forward. Today, we're talking about how those relationships shape careers, expand what feels possible, and support the next generation of leaders in our industry. Kyle, welcome to the Talent Current.
Note that all opinions expressed in this episode are those of Kyle's and his alone, not on behalf of Sunracer.
Kyle, first, I just want to say thank you so much for joining me on the Talent Current. I've really enjoyed getting to know you the past couple of months, getting to meet with you at RE Plus this year, and for you taking a chance and supporting me on our salary survey.
No, thank you, Mindy, for having me. It's an honor to be here, and everything you've said is shared and mutual. And when we talked at RE Plus at one point, I think I even called you my therapist, because I was, talking to you in such an authentic way in an environment where we're talking so transactional, all week long, where it was like, wow, you're very easy to talk to. So I'm honored to be here.
Thank you for that. That means a lot to me. And I think to kick us off today, something you said to me in one of our conversations, a very humbling statement you made about yourself, is that you are a small town kid from Kansas, and now you're the VP of Growth and Development at Sunracer, which is nothing short of impressive. So I'd love to start our conversation around how that path unfolded for you, how you started as a small town kid to be in this leadership position.
Sure, yeah. So a little bit of background about me. The small town kid from Kansas, as I moved around throughout the industry in different positions, and I spent a number of years developing projects, wind projects. I mean, I have some photos up here of some of those past projects throughout Kansas, Iowa, Illinois, and it was part of how I resonated with the communities of, speaking to them on a truly personal level, on a, almost a cultural level, and how we identify with one another, because it's hard to relate to certain people when you have such different backgrounds. And that's something that I noticed really, really helped me throughout the development process. And so ultimately I did grow up in a town called Gardner, Kansas. It was about 3,000 people when we moved there. Now it's booming because of a lot of actual industrial development that's happened around there. And so energy has always been a part of my family's life. So as a small town kid, we didn't grow up with much money at all, and the energy bill was always a problem. And so it was something I resonated with and thought a lot about from a young age, and didn't really understand why, and eventually moved to California when I could first leave my small town and, go to where at the time my mom said I went and found myself, because as a small town kid from Kansas, you dream of California. And that lasted about a year. I saw these solar panels on people's homes and was like, why didn't my parents do that? When energy was such a problem. And so I came back to Kansas, went to the University of Kansas for environmental science undergrad and postgrad, where I really focused on renewable energy using GIS. So really technical skills related to siting projects and analyzing projects, where I got my foot in the door at a company called Tradewind Energy. And so Tradewind Energy was also based in Kansas and got their Lenexa, Kansas, got their roots around wind projects within the Midwest, really that wind belt. And so had tremendous amount of success from a small startup scrappy company to ended up being acquired by Enel Green Power after 1, if not 2 years of successfully bringing on more megawatts of wind than any other company in the US. I remember the year we did more than Invenergy, for example, was a big sense of pride for a small company like us. And we were acquired by Enel Green Power. And through that process, I switched from GIS to development, where I spoke about, how I identified with communities and there's the project management side of development. And there's also the communication that is required in development from internally, but also externally, and how you convey the message of your company to other people. And now work at Sunracer Renewables, where I'm leading development of some of our internal projects, as well as growing our portfolio, as we're fortunate in this strange, turbulent time of the industry of being in growth mode, which is a good and something I'm grateful for, given the circumstances. And so that path really was ultimately around, learning skills and finding skill gaps to fulfill those, of how I could get into the energy industry, because I was really drawn to renewables from, somewhat of a young age, late teens, and ultimately relied around something my uncle said to me when I was younger of, Kyle, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Over the years, it's really come to fruition of what it really means, which is I had skills. I may not have been the smartest person in the room or the best GIS analyst or maybe even like the best developer, but with the people that I met along the way really opened those doors for me and allowed me to be exposed, because exposure is something that, you can only find what you love and what you resonate with by being exposed to. And so the people that I met along the way gave me the opportunities to expose me to those. And then B, really realizing that, when I was a GIS analyst, I felt like I could identify with communities better than maybe some other developers, and didn't understand why do these people maybe not want wind projects nearby, or what do they, what do they see wrong with it? And it's a community identity crisis when you're known as this, big agriculture area, and then somebody's coming in and proposing to essentially put maybe industrial products or, machinery within the community. So there was the journey really evolved over time, but it really resonated around the people I met and ultimately putting myself out there to ask the people I met for the opportunity, and then giving me the exposure I needed.
So much of your circumstances helped to influence your career path, but then also the community, kind of a two-way street with the community component, where you felt compelled to support your community, but then also the community was there because there were opportunities within Kansas that you could pursue that could support your interest in energy. And I would venture a guess that there was also some interest in the environment that was tied up in there as well. I really want to expound on that community piece, because I know that's really important to you. So I think to start that, you've mentioned to me some really pivotal moments in your career that shaped your growth. And maybe a better way of saying it is there were some people that really shaped your career path. So I'd love to hear a little bit more from you on what some of those moments or some of those people were for you.
Yeah, by all means. And you're spot on. Environment was absolutely a big driving factor of why I went into environmental science, but that's such a broad subject. It's like what do I resonate with and what do I feel like I can have the most impact on? And so what resonated with me the most was the energy aspect. And along that way, whether it's from, early stages of influence, maybe even in college, for example, where professors would have kind of tailored, if you're interested in renewable energy, here's some areas that you could focus on or skills that you could focus on. So therefore, when you do graduate, for example, you at least have a skill that you can bring to the table rather than well-rounded knowledge on a broad subject and no no real focus. And so I had some great opportunities to do some research and do some capstone projects related to energy, especially early in your career, is to really focus on a specific skill set, just so you can at least get into the industry and then tailor that and gain skills along the way. As I've mentioned, and probably will mention several more times, to where, at Tradewind Energy, for example, I knew people in the GIS department through the rock climbing club because I was a big rock climber in college. And, I kept kind of pestering them of like, really love an opportunity. Let me know if something opens up. And ultimately something did. And I got the opportunity to join the team. And so that was kind of the first glimpse of like, oh, wow, I don't think I would have had that if I didn't know this person from the rock climbing club and use that network, right? I've always been a people person. So it kind of comes a little more naturally to me to want to talk to people, learn about them, ask them questions, understand their interests, their hobbies, which allowed them to be able to connect to me. One simple but transformative one was when this chief development officer, Matt Gilhousen, he was a big cyclist at the time. And I was, previous rock climber, and he was talking about bikes, and he let me join them on a bike ride, and it was called the MS 150. And I remember it being the hardest thing of my life, hands down, the hardest thing I'd ever done. I wasn't a big cyclist the time, but I survived. I had grit and I pushed through, and I wanted to prove to him that I could do it, And it was that experience where Mike Skelly, who I met with at the end, he at that point ran Clean Line, which is this big transmission operation or independent transmission developer. Told Matt, hey, if somebody who doesn't have the background of cycling as him kept up with you today, you better make him a developer, because if he has that much grit, he's going to be a good developer, and I'll make him a developer if he's not. And so it kind of resonated with me. It was like, oh, so that's what it takes to be a developer, is grit. And that little story was very transformative for me, because ultimately I went back to the office the next week and walked into our VP's office and said, I think I want to be a developer. I didn't really know what that entailed, but he gave me the opportunity. And so from there, it was like, it was an eye-opening of, okay, put yourself out there, try new things. If it works, great. If it doesn't, you at least learned what works and what doesn't work for you. And from there, I've just met so many people along the way that have really opened doors for me, and ultimately realized, if I'm willing to put in the work, and if you're a driven individual, when you ask for help or you tell somebody you're interested in something, they will go out of their way to help you. People are inherently nice and they want to help people. If you ask for help, most people will be willing to do it if they have the time and they have the resources to do so. It's on you to be your biggest advocate. It's always on you. And you have to identify skill gaps that you maybe need to get through to go to somewhere you want to get. But it's always been people along the way that have really been the most transformative for me.
There's so many golden nuggets in what you just said. Like, I feel like we could just stop the podcast right now. There's the organic building of your network where, you just put yourself out there through competitive sports. Also, what you talked about is asking for help and advocating for yourself, which sometimes go hand in hand. So, something that takes some grit and some confidence, where you're basically asking for someone to do something for you, where maybe you don't have something to offer in return, or you're not sure what you have to offer in return yet. You're coming from a GIS background and you want to get into development maybe, but you don't necessarily know what that entails, or if you have the skill set to do that. Being the best advocate that you can, because nobody else is going to know you like you do. something that really strikes me as special about you and your journey is that you have built this incredible network, and you give so much credit to how this network has supported you in building your career. And you're very humble in that other side of what you've done to get there. And the reason why your network has been so supportive, it's likely because you have always returned, tenfold what it is that you asked for by showing up as a professional. When I think about these communities and these networks that we're building, it's not just about what can you do for me, but what can I do for you? And that's something that, as a relationship person, which clearly you are, I think comes so naturally to you. That is just like, okay, well, then I got to show up for this person. Matt advocated for me, so now I don't want to disappoint him. I need to perform. I need to show him that he made the right choice in me. So many incredible principles that are buried in your story that I think have brought you from small town Kansas kid to VP.
No, I think you're right. And you're right about all of that. So the leadership impact at various companies is incredibly important to understand what do your employees want, personally, professionally, who are they, and understanding them and trying to help build them up. Environment and then energy, and now it's evolving more and more into relationships and connection with people. Ultimately, asking for something is only so useful if you're not willing to give back or put in work first. And I think that is something that I've had to, maybe I've had inherently, but it didn't come naturally within, confidence or understanding, you are capable of something, or, while that seems like that goal is very far away, what are some steps you can take along the way to reach that goal? Small town Kansas, education wasn't a big thing for me back then, but over the years, it became so evident of how important it is of learning and understanding. And, when work is done, that doesn't mean you don't have to stop working on yourself, and working on things that you want to focus on to get to whatever goal it is that you have in the future. People have always given me more than I give them, because maybe I don't want to admit that I bring something to the table or whatever that may be. Maybe, we've talked about imposter syndrome, and I heard one of your guests talk about it, and it resonated so well of, talking about like, well, am I the right person? Am I capable? Am I smart enough? You start questioning everything. And over time you realize like everybody deals with that in their own way. Maybe it becomes more natural to some people to put themselves out there. And maybe it becomes more natural for me, and I don't, really realize it because you don't know how other people think behind the scenes. But ultimately, I have been very, very driven in the fact of I want to do better. Like if I get into something, I want to learn everything about it. I want to spend my time learning about it. I want to ask people about it. And I think when I'm constantly going to people asking for questions, maybe not for help, but questions, like I'm really interested in this. I'd like to learn more about it. They're willing to help, and they see something like, okay, the curiosity's there. Now we just need to start working on development or skills or whatever it may be to get that person to where they want to go and retain them, as talent. And so leadership plays that role really, really well within a company, and mentors or guides, as I might put, because some people may not want to be considered a mentor, but they've guided me in a number of different ways. Leadership and the people I've met along the way have just been really open to supporting me. And I think that's somewhat undervalued for a lot of leaders in companies right now, because it's hard to manage. We're all so busy. It can be easy to forget that people are the most important asset of any company, let alone any community. Is like people are everything. The work and the money and everything obviously matters, or else the company will go under. But without the people being motivated, none of it will be successful.
Yeah, so good. Okay, what I heard you say in there is be genuinely curious and start to get to know people and over, like, through developing that relationship, it's not necessarily strictly about debits and credits. How much can I give you versus how much can you give me? But starting to, rather than tell people what you can do, show people what you can do with this combination of being humble and being confident and also being driven.
The way I'd respond to that, curiosity is probably one of the most important aspects to me to want to stand out from other people. You have to be curious to want to learn more, to want to grow, to want to have a bigger impact. Well, how did you get to where you're at? How, what decisions did you make? Was it education? Was it, certain skills? If you're interested in getting somewhere in, your career, or you're interested in getting somewhere in your own personal life, you have to ask questions in order to have the information that suits getting to where you want to go. Research has shown, I'm a millennial, so I'm 35 years old, that one of the most important aspects, and I think Gen Z, this is the same thing, one of the most important aspects of what keeps talent and retains talent is giving them a path to growth and development. And so when I started my career, obviously I was thinking about like growing. And, patience is a virtue, and I haven't had a lot of it, but I've had to learn how to have patience because, just because you want something doesn't mean you deserve it. You have to put in the work. You have to prove that you're capable of it. You have to put in all the time and effort. What are the right questions to ask to get the right information in order to grow? You just have to be, asking the right person and putting yourself in the positions to give that opportunity.
Yeah. Something else that you said that I want to bring back up is around positively assuming people are good and want to help you. And that's something that I think is probably not instilled in us enough. People genuinely want to help you. What is that something that you just grew up with, or did someone teach you that? And how would you advise people who maybe struggle with imposter syndrome or have a fear of authority to break through that?
It's a good question. I think people are inherently nice and good. And I think we are a community-oriented species that wants everybody to benefit. As a general statement, I truly believe that. But the renewable energy industry, I think, has even more of that in there. It doesn't always start with how do I get to where I'm going. I think you hit the nail on the head of how can I learn from other people, and that, for what you're doing right here in this podcast. We've known each other for a few months, and you wanted to learn more about me and what I'm doing and what's going on. And that resonated with me. And, here we are talking today. I felt the same way when I met you. It's because you're interested in people. And I think on a personal level, that's probably more important in many aspects than like, how do I benefit? How do I grow professionally? How do I benefit from you? I mean, I think genuine curiosity within people will go a lot farther because you have a connection, and connection is just something that is somewhat dwindling these days because we're all remote and it's hard to connect with people, like really truly connect via these virtual formats and everything like that, than it was if you were to meet that person in real life and have an actual dialogue. And so my curiosity has always been about people more so than personal growth. And so I think ultimately it's like, being curious about people will take you really farther than you can imagine, because people are here for one another, and genuinely, like, that's all we've really got. We've just got each other, and we've got experiences, and we've got memories. In the grand scheme of things, without getting too, philosophic here, but it's like, that's all we've got is each other, and really lean into that. The greatest at one specific thing. You can be the best, absolute best at one thing, but if you don't have people around you, it's only going to take you so far. And if you're willing to put in the work to get to know someone, I guarantee they're willing to put in the work to help you and get to know you.
So good. We started this episode talking about community, but I actually think you just nailed it right there, that what we're really talking about is connection. And the genuine curiosity is actually also genuinely caring about somebody else and their story and who they are and what makes them work. Not everybody that you meet is necessarily going to be a mentor for you or even an advocate for you, frankly. But the more connection that you have with people, the more influence both ways that you can have. And within the communities that we build, we likely have some circles of influence around us. And that connection and the people that we're most connected with are probably what give us the most joy in life. So I love that you take that philosophy into your professional life too. I can say that is something where I feel like we've really connected. There was this mutual interest in getting to know each other. And then that's where we can find ways to support each other in the future in some way or another. But that's where relationships can really impact your career. I I want to ask you what you would advise to maybe somebody in their early career or somebody who maybe is even middle management later on in their career who don't have this natural instinct to be curious or connect with people, or maybe don't have a network or community that they feel like they can lean on. What would you advise to them to open that up and start connecting more?
Yeah, I like that question because I can only speak to my, personal experience in many cases of, how it's worked for me and how I've personally benefited from the community and network and people and just generosity. For people that are, whether it's early in your career or mid-career and you're maybe feeling stagnant or maybe interested in doing something else or pivoting or growing, it doesn't have to come naturally to learn how to do something. Most things don't come naturally unless you, I don't know, I feel like you really lean into it and see what works and what doesn't, and you keep trying and trying. It's like public speaking, for example, that may come naturally for some people, but I bet the people that it looks like it comes naturally to, if you met them early in their career, they were not good at it, right? They may have like been able to talk openly in front of people and not be embarrassed or scared, but they probably weren't good at it, right? And so it's one of those things to where you kind of have to put yourself out there. You have to put yourself in positions that at least give you the opportunity to learn. And, maybe you might not do well and you'll lay there in bed at night and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I said that. Why did I say it like that? But you really do have to put yourself out there and just let go of your ego, your insecurities. Just know that we're all people doing this in the world. And that's happened to me time and time again. I mean, the co-founding of Pedal Steel Solar started from a bike ride with some people that I hadn't met before, and they were interested in energy. And so it's one of those things where putting yourself out there seems really hard to do, but just do it. Whether it's in your local community, whether it's at a conference. Some of the best conversations that I've ever had at a conference have come from just natural conversations of meeting somebody along the way, versus just this like transactional conversation that you set up ahead of time. Most of my most influential experiences has come from just really things maybe outside of work that have then bled into work or bled into the professional life. There are resources and people out there that are willing to help you refine that, help you learn how to do that. You just have to be exposed to these things in order to figure out what you're good at, what you're not. Ultimately, you need to work on the things that you may not feel comfortable doing or may not be good at. And so I think it's one of those things, whether you're early or you're mid-career, you kind of have to just put yourself out there and sign up for things that put you in positions in order to benefit from and learn from and grow. Don't get too burnt out if things don't feel like they're progressing very fast or they're not moving along. It's like that connection you made a year ago might circle back a year later, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, this just turned into something completely different. And that friendship that you have, all of a sudden they're at a different company and they're like, oh, we have this role open or whatever it may be. We're like, that's how it happens. And whatever you want will happen. It just may be a matter of time. And yeah. patience is a virtue.
Yeah, so good. So be uncomfortable. If
Yeah,
you
for sure.
if you are too comfortable, then you're probably not learning and growing and changing. I also heard be vulnerable, like show me yours and I'll show you mine, often is how relationships grow. You've got to be a little bit vulnerable, and like we talked about in the beginning, maybe that's asking for help, or maybe it's saying, hey, I noticed that you are really good at public speaking and I am so terrified of that. How did you get there? And, again, the common theme of our conversation today, be curious and finding a group that speaks to you. And there are so many groups, especially in renewable energy now, that you can join, that you can start with, that feel comfortable.
I couldn't agree more, and you're so good at summarizing my tangents and my sporadic thoughts. And so, thank you for doing that. Yeah, growth only happens when discomfort is present, and then being curious and being genuinely wanting to meet people and talk to people. I mean, it just opens up so many doors. But to your point, not everybody can maybe go up and just spark a conversation with somebody they've never met before. I mean, that's incredibly intimidating. It's still intimidating for me, but I've done it so many times again and again. And so I think a lot of it started from hearing other people's stories. They didn't start as CEO of Patagonia, for that example, right? They started as this dirtbag climber that wanted to do these things, and they met this person, and that person connected them there, and the next thing you know, they started a company. We're all people. We all start somewhere. It's like we all want to be in that position, and it will take some time. It will absolutely take some time, but it all starts with those conversations and the network and just helping people along the way. I feel like most of the best things that have happened throughout my career and life have just come from these genuine connections with one another that have just really transformed into the professional world of you can rely on them for learning resources or advocacy for you. I do feel like if you just keep trying and trying, you're going to find somebody or a connection or something that resonates really well that's going to support you in ways that you genuinely can't imagine.
I hope that whoever listens to this podcast, if they don't have someone like you in their life, it inspires them to seek out a mentor, an advocate, a sponsor like you that can help them get to that next stage.
Please reach out to me. I'm happy to provide my LinkedIn or email or whatever it may be to help people reach out and say, I'm interested in this, or here's an idea, and how do you think I should approach it? That's how I've benefited from other people, is providing guidance and everything like that. The only thing that I would end on is ultimately you have to be willing to just ask for help, to advocate for yourself, and to put in the work. I genuinely think whatever you want to do, wherever you want to grow, the resources are out there, the people are out there. So if you want to start with me and ask some questions, I'm happy to point you in the right direction. And don't be afraid to, send a message or shoot your shot, or, sign up for that random thing that, you may be uncomfortable for, but it's going to help you grow.
So good. Thank you for offering that. And thank you so much for joining me on the Talent Current. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Pleasure's mine, Mindy. Thank you for taking the time, and looking forward to round 2, or being a resource, or working with you in the future.
Thank you, Kyle. I had so much fun. I really appreciate you. This is your host, Mindy Prefling, and that's it for this episode of the Talent Current. Thanks for listening, and if you enjoyed the conversation, please be sure to subscribe and share. I'll be back soon with more insights to keep you connected to how our industry is changing and the people shaping what's next.